Torrie. Hey, Torrie Wilson. Hey there, baby girl. Have you got a couple of minutes for your general manager? There's an urgent matter I need to speak to you about.
Actually, Teddy, I'm supposed to catch a flight and I'm already running late. I'd love to stay and talk, but...
That's okay. Don't worry about it, Torrie. I don't want to be responsible for my #1 diva missing her flight. You feel me? I'll catch up with you next week.
Thanks, Teddy. I'll see you Thursday.
Damn! I hate to see that girl go, but I love watching her leave. Holla!
What was that? Teddy? Oh my God, Teddy! Don't worry, Teddy. It's going to be okay. Help! Somebody please help! I just can't believe that someone could do that to poor Theodore Long.
Yo, don't worry about that, Torrie. He'll be all right, and they'll catch whoever did it.
Hey, Torrie. Cena. Excuse me, Torrie. I heard that you were the last person to see Teddy Long before his accident. Do you mind if I ask you about it?
Hey, Columbo, take it somewhere else, okay? Can't you see the lady's upset? She doesn't need you accusing her of something she had nothing to do with.
No one's accusing anyone of anything, Cena. But as long as you're here, where were you when Theodore Long was taken out?
Excuse me? I must have missed the part where you explained to me why I had to answer to you. Who the hell you think you are to come up here and get all up in my grill?
Oh, you tell him, Cena. Fight the power. Don't take any guff from the man. I mean, dude, it's not like there's any way that an angry thug who walks around with brass knuckles and a steel chain around his neck could ever take anyone out, right?
Yo, look who it is. Mr. Pay-Per-View. You know, for a guy who calls himself the whole damn show, you sure ain't had much in the way of title shots lately, have you, Chief? Sounds like a pretty good motive for punking out our GM, don't it? So where were you when T-Lo got aced?
Well, let's see. I think I was probably chilling out in the back, stretching out, you know, throwing some kicks and reading some comics.
You think you were? Can anybody vouch for you?
That's my downtime. Just me, RVD.
I can't believe any of you would ever do anything to hurt Teddy. This is all so awful. What do you think happened?
Alright, hey everyone, welcome back with Beano Mac. Today we're going to start a playthrough of WWE Smackdown vs. Raw 2006, where we're going to do the Smackdown brand as Carlito. And here is the season mode in this game I always liked because it was kind of a different direction for the first time in the series. So in previous iterations, season mode was kind of just that. It was you kind of kept going on with it, you know, in an infinite story, and you know, sometimes you get the same storylines depending on where you were on the card or if you were a champion or whatnot. And other times, you know, it would just be like in SmackDown 2, no matter what, or whoever you played as, you didn't even have to play as anybody. It would just kind of be random storylines just from week to week and stuff like that. This time, though, is you select a particular superstar and you just have a set story path. And actually, now that I think about it, I think the original SmackDown vs. Raw ended that with Here Come the Pain was the last real season mode, whereas with this one, and the original SmackDown vs. Raw, I mean, that's kind of when they tried to do the new season mode where it's an actual story mode, really. But you know, I think they kind of really started to nail down that formula with this game, and this game I think has some of the most memorable storylines in any of the WWE game, you know, story modes and whatnot. They really did a great job of capturing a lot of the characters at the time. They had the storylines, I think, there's less storylines overall than the majority of games, as you'll see, but I think the storylines that they did have included are very well done. And another thing that sticks out is, you may have already kind of noticed it with the motion capture. Yeah, it's it's a little off, but in my opinion, I think SmackDown vs. Raw 2006 should have been the first SmackDown vs. Raw. I know that's a weird thing to say, but this game, like the original SmackDown vs. Raw, felt like not even really an upgraded version of it, but just kind of like a worse version of Here Comes the Pain when you think of it. And it's not a bad game, but you know, the reason why I think it has its reputation is because obviously it came after Here Comes the Pain, one of the most beloved wrestling games of all time, if not the most beloved wrestling game of all time. And so, but SmackDown vs. Raw 2006, I mean, everything kind of felt fresh. You know, the look at the arenas, the character models, the story mode. This game is the first game to have GM mode. And, you know, this is honestly my favorite iteration of GM mode because of it's kind of basic and bare bones in a lot of ways, but it's still, you know, way more in depth than, you know, freaking, you know, the modern GM modes and stuff. At least from what I played in 2K22 when they brought it back, which I believe they have been slowly upgrading it over the past 2 games. But I mean, they kind of knocked it right out of the park in its, you know, first attempt in this game. But it was still kind of like, it didn't have a lot of restrictions that the later ones would have, especially 2007, where, you know, you had to have rivalries with storylines, and, you know, clean and dirty nonsense and stuff like that. It was kind of just, you know, you could have basic one-on-ones for the GM mode, but, ooh. Well, he does only have a yellow hat, but still, the game actually convinced me I was going to win there for a second. But, I don't know, but that's kind of GM mode. We're talking about season mode here, but yeah, I think this really should have like been I feel like this is probably what they wanted to do for the first SmackDown vs. Raw game. You know, they probably had grand ideas of, you know, obviously that was the first game. The big thing in that game was, you know, the first game to have actual voiced lines and stuff like that, whereas it just kind of didn't, you know, pan out, I feel like, in the way that they hoped. And like I said, the roster was just terrible, which, you know, is out of their control. I mean, what are you going to do, right? I mean, people say Brock Lesnar should have been in it. Well, Brock Lesnar left at WrestleMania, same with Goldberg. I've heard people say, oh, well, Stone Cold should have been in it. You know, I don't disagree, but the fact is Stone Cold had a falling out with the company, so he couldn't be included in the game. But this game, a lot of things were fixed, so I think the mid-card roster is something that I think is kind of the underrated aspects, especially at games at this time, that really kind of draw you in. Because I think those are what really take you back to the time period, right? Because, you know, you play like 10 WWE games in a row, you're always going to have the Batistas, the Stone Colds, the Rocks, the John Cenas, the Undertakers, the Triple H's and stuff like that. And sometimes the gimmick of a certain wrestler can kind of bring you back, but like in my opinion, the mid card is kind of like what really brings you back. You know, with Carlito in this game, Chris Masters just starting out, Eugene was a decent deal at this time as a big mid carder. Heidenreich they tried to do something with, so that's why he's in this game. All right, I think this should be it here. But yeah, the mid-card I feel like is what really sells these games for me. And this is also the first WWE game to have outros like this. So Carlito is cool. Well, we all know that, but you know, it's awesome that he has like a special outro cutscene here. And that's with a few superstars. So like John Cena also has one. I believe RVD does as well. Kane obviously has one. Undertaker. Maybe Chris Benoit, Randy Orton, you know, the big characters and stuff like that, they gave, you know, special outros.
Hey, dude. I just wanted to say, man, I really appreciate you getting my back when Cena went off last week. I can't even believe a thug like him would accuse me of running down Theodore Long like that. Thanks for believing in me, dude.
Actually, RVD, neither one of you convinced me of anything. Cena wanted a match, and I gave it to him. And besides, he made some good points. You have to admit, It has been a long time since Teddy Long gave you a title shot.
Oh, so that's the way it's gonna be, huh? Well, let me tell you something. I don't need to have a title to be Mr. Thursday Night. So tonight, why don't you meet me in the ring, find out just exactly what it means to get your ass smoked by Rob Van Dam.
Man, normally RVD is, a mellow guy to say the least. But he's acting a little touchy about the whole Teddy Long thing.
Well, it's a touchy subject, Taz, and until we find out who did it, I think it's going to remain that way, even for a guy like Rob Van Dam.
But yeah, before, I'm just going to clarify my outro thing. I know that like back in the day, because I'm sure somebody might say it otherwise, but they did have outros back in the day, but those were mostly taunts or whatever, but whereas like these are kind of like dedicated cutscenes. So I just want to clear that point up. But yeah, another thing that I kind of failed to mention earlier is that this game, obviously, as you've seen, I actually had a choice to make, and obviously that affected who I faced in the first week and the second week, because, and I think it actually, it's crazy, because depending on what your choice is here, I believe that actually affects the storyline later on. It might be this, the choice that I made for, at the start of this playthrough. It might even be, if I remember correctly, it might even be like an upcoming match that decides the future, end storyline at WrestleMania. But this game, I feel like people don't really mention it enough because people are always on about No Mercy. No Mercy's fantastic. But I do want to, bring up the point that this game, I think, probably did the, this or 2007 probably did the alternate storylines the best, in my opinion, because there's like just so many small little choices you can have, and changes who you face, changes future storylines, like I mentioned previously on both shows and whatnot. Each show has their own storylines, and I think No Mercy, it gets a lot of praise for that, wins and losses matter and stuff like that, but at the same time, and I'm even saying this as No Mercy is my favorite game of wrestling game of all time, that is. I think people do kind of oversell it a little bit. Because it is great because you have like really good storylines. The WWF has where they recreate, the storylines of that time period are the best, in my opinion. And I do like how it changes the story a bit, but when like it goes off the beaten path because you lost a match or whatever, like the follow-up storylines are kind of pretty. There's not really anything there, in my opinion, and the storylines most of the time are bare bones. Like maybe you'll have like a guy walk up to you and say, "Hey, I hope you weren't planning on winning tonight, because I plan on it," or something silly like that, like Taka Michinoku or freaking Grandmaster Sexay will say that, or something like that, or Jeff Hardy will just come out and say, "Hey, how about a ladder match?" And then you just have a ladder match or something like that. So, and the biggest thing with that too is it is cool in the fact of, okay, when it happens naturally and you lose and you get to see the storyline progress in another way, that is really cool. But when you actually have like done all the, the storyline where you have to win the majority of the matches, having to go out there and lose matches to get, maybe one block if you're lucky, because like a lot of times storylines they'll connect into each other, and a lot of times the storylines don't actually really connect. They'll be like, all right, the corporation says, beat this guy in this cage match and you'll have more work. Then you lose and it's just like, all right, well, Trish Stratus says she'll sleep with you if you go out there and win tonight. Then like you lose. All right, well, the APA just want to kick your ass because somebody just paid them to do it, I guess, for some reason, Like, those aren't all things that happen. Like, obviously, the Trish Stratus one does not happen, but you get the idea. It's like they kind of just go... When you win, the storylines start to make sense, but as you start to lose more and more matches, like, they don't really connect with one another, Like, it's not like, oh, well, most of them aren't like, oh, well, see, you lost to me last week, so... you don't deserve this title shot or whatever, so, but, whatever, you get a second chance if you beat me, or, like, it doesn't always progress in a natural way. So, I mean, as much as No Mercy is my jam in that sense, once you experience a lot of storylines, it kind of, it can be exciting, like, if you, depending on, like, your storyline progression or whatever, but other times it's kind of just like, all right, well, you lose this random match, so now you're going into another random match. It's kind of what I'm really trying to say. And like I said, I mean, sometimes like you have to experiment and you'll do all these paths, but then like you don't actually get a new path because, you know, the storyline doesn't actually really change or progress. And there are just some times where like I swear, like, you know, you'll do something and it'll say like, hey, you know, you can't, you know, if you win or lose, the storyline will change, and then they lose the match and said, hey, you were supposed to win. So it's only like 1 or 2 storylines where it's like that, but like it's already a confusing mess in championship mode with that kind of stuff. So it's just kind of, when it's incorrectly labeled and stuff like that, like, oh man, that's the worst. Like getting 100% storyline completion in No Mercy is definitely a monumental task in the wrestling gaming community. So I just think that this game kind of does a better job at those storylines because you don't have to lose or win or lose or whatever, but a lot of people like the idea of that.
RVD is the cat that rolls thunder and home smoke, but gets his ass whipped when he messes with grown folk. You blaze trees, I break knees, and your frog splash is trash. You ain't got what it takes, please. I'm the whole damn show from sunlight to sundown. Van Dam is the reason Teddy Long got run down. Stick them thumbs up your ass, RVD. John Cena, Chain Gang. You can't see me.
That was real clever the way you made everything rhyme there, Vanilla Ice. It's too bad you can't wrestle half as good as you rhyme. You seem like you've got a lot of hostility that you need to get out of your system. So how about meeting me in this ring a little later and seeing what we can do about it?
You want to go, RVD? Well, why don't we do it right now?
Well, here's a pleasant surprise. It looks like Torrie Wilson's coming down here to try to get these two to take it down a notch. Remember, Torrie was the last one to see General Manager Teddy Long before his accident just a few weeks ago.
And it was some questions meant for Torrie that sparked the problems between all these guys. Problem is, Cole, when you got a hot tomato like Torrie who tries to calm down guys who are acting all macho and whatnot, it's like trying to put out fire with gasoline.
Rob, John, come on. You guys don't need to do this. Why don't you just shake hands and call off this nonsense?
The only nonsense here is what's between his ears if he thinks he's got what it takes to hang with me and my chain gang.
Gee, dog, hanging with you sounds really cool and all, but if it's all the same to you, I think I'd rather just kick your ass.
Guys, please. This isn't helping anything. Please calm down and let's talk this out.
I'd punk you out right now if there wasn't a lady present. But that's all right. I'll see you back here later tonight.
No problem, Cena. I wouldn't want Torrie to have to watch the beating I'm going to give you anyway.
Looks like you were right, Taz. It seems like Torrie Wilson's presence hasn't calmed anyone. She's trying her best to help, but she's inadvertently exasperated the situation.
Yeah, not only that, she made it a heck of a lot worse, too.
Torrie Wilson. Just the little lady I was looking for. Must be pretty flattering to have all those boyfriends doing all that fighting over you like that, huh?
What do you want, JBL?
Oh, I just had a quick question for you. But don't worry, I'm not going to accuse you of attempted murder or nothing. Now listen, right before Theodore Long's unfortunate accident, did he happen to ask you about any paperwork or contracts or anything like that?
Contracts? No, what are you talking about?
Oh, nothing much. just...
JBL, what the hell are you doing?
Oh, I was just leaving. See you soon, Torrie.
What the heck was that all about?
I don't know, but listen, we have a bigger problem. John and Rob are gonna tear each other apart tonight if we don't do something to stop them.
Why not let them do it and get out of their systems?
Because you and I both know that this isn't just going to be a match. They both think they have something to prove. It's so stupid and pointless. But I need you to be the special referee and make sure they don't kill each other out there tonight.
I don't know. It's not really my thing.
Please, as a favor to me?
All right. As a favor to you, I'll do what I can.
Thanks so much. I owe you one. Now you'd better go get ready.
Well, I guess he's going to referee the match, but he certainly doesn't seem to be too excited about stepping between Cena and RVD tonight.
No, but I'd sure say he's motivated. Not for nothing. You don't say no to a chick like that. I'd be happy to ref that match if it meant Torrie Wilson owed me a favor.
Alright, since this is a special referee match and I'm not actually competing, I just picked RVD to be the winner.
Whoa, here we go again with these three.
This potentially explosive situation is about to blow sky high. We saw this last time. Torrie did more harm than good.
If you ask me, I think Torrie's best move is to just stay out of it at this point.
Stop it right now! How do you think it makes me feel? Knowing that you guys are all trying to out-macho each other for me. And don't tell me that's not what's going on. Believe me, I know men, and I know when you're trying to impress a woman.
She sees right through him, Cole. Let me ask you this question. Have you ever tried to impress a woman?
Well, partner,
Don't answer that.
I can only think of one sure way to make you guys stop. This Sunday at Judgment Day, you're all going to face off in a triple threat match. And I'm going to put my contract on the line. I'll manage whoever wins. And whoever doesn't win had better act like a gentleman about it, or I'll never speak to you again.
Well, I'll tell you, Torrie Wilson just laid down the law. Now I've seen just about everything.
Can she do that? Can Torrie just make a pay-per-view match like that?
Well, with Teddy Long out, we've got no general manager, right? Who's gonna say no? And with Torrie's services on the line, I don't think any of these guys are gonna object at all.
That's for sure, partner.
I have to wonder what the wrestlers think of, you know, coming in and doing all these voice lines and stuff like that. Like, I wonder, do they think it's like a hassle and they don't really care and they're just kind of in it for the wrestling and the money and stuff like that? Which I'm sure that's some of them, and then others it's not. But like, I have to wonder, like, what does Carlito think about doing voiceovers for the games and stuff like that? And, you know, the developers and stuff. Like, I think it's interesting, like Steven Richards or Stevie Richards, whatever one you want to call him. You know, he said he made friends with the developers so he could actually try and be in the games more often when it was possible. I think this SmackDown vs. Raw 2006, he said, was actually his last WWE game appearance. Which is a little fun fact that I learned from him, actually. He's actually, him and that James, man, I can't remember his last name, but that James guy, you know, he's also on Storytime with Dutch Mantel and stuff like that, and he's got the WSI interviews and stuff like that, which I love watching, you know, that guy's work. But yeah, him and Stevie have a podcast now, and it's actually pretty entertaining. They talk about a pretty good variety of topics about Stevie Richards, and you know, even like, you know, just certain things in his career and what he thinks about certain things about the wrestling business. He doesn't seem to be a big fan of AEW, though. I always find it interesting, the storylines that they're trying to have around these games, where, like, you know, it's the divas and, you know, you're trying to always win them over and stuff like that, and it's like, oh, you know, if they're your manager, you know what comes with that, right? Like, like it's like essentially like a relationship, or you're sleeping with them or something like that. At least that's always the the vibe I always got from it. Like, oh, Trish doesn't want to be my manager, but I won this ladder match, so yeah, you're gonna do everything I say. Oh, it's like, it's so weird. But I don't know. Like, I don't really care about like the sexualization of like characters and stuff like that. Like, it's still weird because it's a game and it's like based off of real life people and stuff. But I don't know. Most of the time the storylines just aren't very good. This one I actually do is a pretty good storyline surrounding it, but most of the time it's just stupid, like bra and panties match or the fulfill your fantasies. Like, those are just like stupid time wasting things that could have development could have gone into other aspects of the games. But that's just kind of how it was around these times. But I bring it up also because two things actually. Is I find it funny. I watched, speaking of podcasts, I've watched some interviews with Bruce Pritchard and stuff like that. But the one I'm talking about more specifically is going to be with Jim Ross and, the Conrad Thompson interviews and stuff like that, which I think are also great if you haven't checked those out. They used to be anyway. Now they're just kind of riddled with ads. But I used to, I remember there was one thing where Jim Ross was asked about Carlito and why he didn't think he made it as a main offender, and Jim Ross said that Carlito was apparently a real Romeo or something like that, and said he was a ladies' man, but that he was more focused on getting laid than being a main eventer. And I just find that funny. But apparently, like, he was someone who was apparently just getting it with all the divas at the time, I guess. But and you think to yourself, like, wow, all those hot chicks and stuff like that, and he's able to get them, that's cool. And I don't know, it's funny how he's kind of like, whenever they're interviewed like that, like with Jim Ross, like he's the one who kind of points out Carlito was the man with the ladies and stuff like that. But I feel like there was a lot of people back in the day. Like CM Punk was, he was literally with, I think, every diva on the roster pretty much. People said Kelly got around. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but like, I'm just saying, like, to point out one specific guy getting with all the chicks. Like, it was clearly, I feel like it was back in before the Ruthless Aggression era. Like, yeah, had like in the Attitude era, you had like Sable and a few divas like Ivory and Jacqueline, but I don't think they were all, maybe they were, but like, it was just less divas, right? But this was the kind of the point where it wasn't really wrestling kind of women, it was, divas, the swimsuit model era and stuff like that. So I mean, like, it was just kind of like, the hottest chicks in the world, and like, this was still at a time when like the people in the WWE, a lot of them were still like big and had that pro wrestling aura to them and stuff like that. So I mean, they were all probably just getting it at points and stuff like that. And we've seen some crazy stuff, with the Page stuff in the modern era. I'm sure they're all still getting it, as you say, and stuff like that. But I think it was Hardcore Holly, who a lot of people don't like, but he just pretty much said in this era, yeah, none of these women are really marriage material, which I just thought was funny. But I don't know, people were definitely, it sounds like people around this time, they were definitely having fun. Let's just put it that way. And I think that's hilarious. At least the consenting stuff. I'll just set that straight, because I know some media out there might try and, say, oh, what do you mean they're having fun? You're talking about Vince? Yeah, no, I'm not talking about that literal, horse shit that discussing stuff like that. I'm talking about the consensual stuff. Let's just set that straight right there. Like I mentioned in my Day of Reckoning series, I don't know if they can really punish Vince, because he's already lived his life. What are you going to do to him now? I mean, his legacy's tarnished anyway, but hopefully he gets some sort of comeuppance for it as well. But, to change the subject, with that special guest referee match, I'm not 100% sure, because I don't know what actually influences it, but like I mentioned earlier, the storyline, that we're going to have in the future for our WrestleMania, I think depending on who you have win that storyline, that match and the special referee match, that might be the influencing factor that changes who you face later on in the game. Not 100% positive on that, though. But I think this is the end of the match here, folks. That's going to be all for today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe. But above all else, please remember to have a nice day.
Bradshaw Layfield. What's the WWE champion doing out here?
Ooh, wait. That was one hell of a match you boys just put on. I knew it was going to be a classic. That's why I didn't bother telling you that you damn near killed each other for something that's already mine.
Something that's already his? What is he talking about?
You see, prior to his tragic accident, I struck a deal with our former general manager, Teddy Long, to procure the managerial services of one Torrie Wilson for myself.
What? Just what is JBL saying?
So thanks for the show, boys. But just like this WWE title, Torrie Wilson is the exclusive property of John Bradshaw.
I don't believe it. Torrie's been under contract to JBL all this time, and she didn't even know it. That must have been what JBL was asking her about last week.
I think it's safe to say the three guys in the ring cannot be happy about this. They've been hacked. How are they going to react to this news on SmackDown?